righty.
Good morning, Miss Richburg.
Good morning, Emily Miller. How's it going?
I'm doing fine. I had a good night's sleep.
Excellent.
And I am ready to...
We're ready to rock.
Facebook Live with you.
That's right.
What?
Well, if it's Wednesday here at beadshop.com, it must be Facebook Live. And today, we are going to, as shown by this beautiful piece, yes, we are going to work on floats. And I'm going to tell you, this episode is going to be so jam-packed.
It's going to be epic.
It is. It's going to be, in one word, epic.
And I'm sorry in advance to Daria because she's going to have a lot of work to do.
A lot of linking.
It's going to be a lot of links. It's going to be a lot of pages.
It's a big one.
It's a monster.
Yes, the episode notes are going to be epic.
Yep.
Let me just jump on here. I'm going to make sure that we're on social media. I see us all.
Are we there? Are we there?
We're there. I am going to share this out. And as always, if you're watching this live, we really do appreciate all of your shares, your comments, all of that good stuff. And I'm just sharing this out to a couple of pages here. So,
Kate,
it was a pretty epic episode last week.
You know, last week's was, I had so much fun with that lantern earring. I'm still making them.
Yeah.
I made another color. I picked out another colorway.
Oh.
For me.
You've been keeping that from me. I have not
I know.
seen it.
I'll show it to you. I'll show it to you later. We had so many things to talk about yesterday. When,
we did.
You know, we
so
started
many.
in.
We gotta.
Yeah.
We gotta get it all out, right?
We gotta talk it all the way through.
Talk it out. Talk it out.
No, I have another colorway that I picked out for me, and it's still one that it's just something I think I can work a bunch of ways. You know, I even want to put some shadows in it.
Yeah.
You know?
Shadows would be beautiful in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. So good. How about you?
How about me? What?
How was your week?
It was a busy week.
I mean, I haven't seen you for a few days.
I know, right? We haven't seen you for a few days. We had a great Facebook Live, of which I am wearing, or the Free Tip Friday.
Free Tip Friday.
Of which I am wearing right here.
I chimed in for a little minute, a quick hot minute.
That was really fun. We've got some great new wire happening.
Boy, those queen shadows on there really look super nice.
It wasn't too bad. Yeah. It was a fun little
kind of a throwback.
A fun little total throwback.
Yeah.
Throwback.
Yep.
There we go. So I've shared this out. Thank you, all of you guys, for jumping on and being with us today for this project. I do want to mention, a lot of you are new and that are just joining us for the first time or the first few times. I wanted to mention, of course, Emily and I are in front of the camera. Janice is behind the camera. We've got Gita, our wonderful moderator, our Denmark moderator.
I was almost I thought you were about to say Den Mother.
Den Mother, that too.
That was like the first thing that came to my head.
So you'll see Gita commenting as beadshop.com, and of course we've got Brandwin behind the camera here, doing all kinds of photographing and working the camera and all that all at the same time.
Telling us when we need to lift up or
right.
move out. And
so the whole team is here and raring to go.
It takes a village.
It does for sure. So we want to tell you that if you don't watch us live, you can watch us a bunch of different ways. You can watch us on our Facebook page right here. All archived. Our Facebook Live videos and our Free Tip Friday videos are archived here. You can watch us on our website, beadshop.com. If you go to our website and you click on our top bar, it says Facebook Live, and all of the Facebook Lives are in order by date. And so the topmost one on the left-hand side are the most recent one, and then it goes from there. So you can click through, and the video after the broadcast is embedded there. You can also find us on our YouTube channel, and our YouTube channel, if you subscribe, you'll get a notification every time something goes up.
Well, it's kind of nice than YouTube because it's no comments.
Right.
So you can just move right through the video. I get terribly distracted both by the video and the comments, so I almost feel like I always miss one or the other.
Yeah, you want to watch it straight through.
Yep.
You can also fast forward through about the first 15 minutes of the broadcast, and that's usually when the learning and the kind of the meat of the subject starts. And you can also, every Monday, Drea kind of does a summation, we call it episode notes, of the Wednesday broadcast. And we post those up on our website on the projects. So the episode notes for these projects will be up on those individual projects Monday, sometime after 12 o'clock. Usually they go up, and so you'll see those. So
West Coast
those
time.
are West Coast time. So those are really helpful. I know a lot of you, I get comments, they say, you know what, if we can't watch the broadcast, I just download the episode notes and do the project through there, which is awesome. So it's great to have all of you guys here and watching. I wanted to take a couple of business notes here before we get started. We've got our bead retreat coming up in San Juan Bautista, California. We're just sending Janice some pieces today
For her to play with.
For our piece. So if you are coming to our bead retreat, fantastic. We can't wait to meet you, and your materials lists and stuff are going out very, very shortly. If you do wish to join us, we have actually one spot that opened up. Unfortunately, someone could not join us due to some personal reasons. So we have one spot available. So if you would like to nab that spot, please email us at info.beadshop@gmail.com. And Drea can forward that information to me, and we can get you all signed up, because I think that spot is going to fill up fast, and we have a great, great time. So that's happening. We're going to be doing wire work and thread, and
I was just going over my calendar, my family calendar at home that my husband and I put things on so we know what's happening. And I said, don't forget, September, mid-September, don't make any doctor's appointments. I'm going to be busy. I have that whole week that I'm going to block out.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you're going away, right? And he's like, yeah, you're going away. You're going to have fun with your friends. I said, really? It's working vacation.
Yeah. And it's a lot of work, but I'll tell you what.
Work first, then vacation.
Yeah.
And it is really fun. We have a blast.
We do have a blast.
But for me, it is a job.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, you're going to be doing things with fun people, and you know.
Yeah, it's true.
In San Juan Bautista.
You know what?
And then you're going to go to Monterey.
Yeah, he's super. He's got you give him that list to
and give him his honeydew list.
His list. The week will fly right by. So we've got that coming up. We also have, I wanted to let you guys know, and we're going to send it out in a newsletter, I'm doing a very special broadcast on a very special episode of Facebook Live. And I don't even know if I've told you this. I told Janice, I like to spring things. I do, right? I like to spring things on Emily live on air. So you know, Bead Fest is coming up, right? Bead Fest is coming up in mid-August, and it's going to be over in Philadelphia, and we're going to do a meet and greet that Saturday at Bead Fest in my classroom, and more details will be forthcoming for that. But as a little teaser for Bead Fest, I'm going live on Tuesday morning, actually from my studio. And we're going to be going live actually from, and we'll link it here on our beadshop.com page. I'll be going live from my Kate Richburg Jewelry Educator page, linking it to this beadshop.com page, also linking it to the Bead Fest page.
Good gravy.
I know it's going to be
it's like a three-strand chain. What's going on?
Right, it is. What's going on here? What we're going to do is I'm going to do a little sneak peek to one of my classes that I'm teaching at Bead Fest, which is my ring class, my Lorena rings, and I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to put on my metalsmithing hat, take off my beading hat, put on my metalsmithing hat, and I'm going to talk a little bit about stone setting, about how to size bezel wire for a cabochon. Just a little teaser, so it's going to be fun.
Metalsmithing is so entrancing, because you start simply. It's a little bit like beading, but you start simply, and the minute you kind of have some of those insights, those
a little bit of muscle memory, a little bit of
like inside information. You think everything. You suddenly start seeing everything in a whole new way.
Right, and you know how to.
Oh, I know how to do that.
Yeah.
I know the steps.
Yeah.
Because it's all about the steps.
Yeah, and it's kind of like wire working.
Yeah.
You know, once you understand how to wire wrap, then it just goes off from there. So that's going to be happening on Tuesday. So watch your newsletters, because we're going to link it and give you more information about that. There's something else I was going to say about that, and now I can't remember. Metalsmithing, I don't know. Whatever it is, it's going to be good times. It'll come to me. I'll remember it in the middle of a demo. So, so that's what I'm going to be doing on Tuesday morning there. So it's going to be good times. So if you haven't, this is what I wanted to say. I knew it would come back. If you want to see some other kind of epic metalsmithing work, Janice did, as some of you will remember, that really, really epic 3-hour challenge we did at Bead and Button when
I gotta tell you,
I smithed and Janice filmed. And I'm telling you, I think
I
Janice
had
had
anxiety
the harder,
for you.
well,
and for
it
both
was,
of you.
it
And
was
Janice,
fun.
I was
it was
like,
fun.
how did she possibly hold that camera?
Well,
up
see,
the entire
that's
time?
the thing. Janice had the harder job. I just had to sit back, chat with people, say, hey, how you doing? Janice, meanwhile, is doing this with the iPhone, like the whole time. I should have bought her a massage afterwards. It was crazy.
It's not too late.
It's not too late. But she was just filming. She filmed that thing. She was like Martin Scorsese, only the female warrior woman version. I'm telling you. So, so if you do want to watch that, if you haven't caught that, it's also archived on our. Great place to find that is our YouTube channel, and it's there.
We have to take a small break.
All 3 hours.
Of course, Gita just.
Why is that?
Because somebody just went under the table.
Oh
Get
dear.
him. I got him.
Oh dear. No,
I caught him out of the corner of my eye, and I'm
No,
like,
no.
ruh-roh.
All right, we got to put him away.
Sorry.
We got to put him away. Put him
Oh,
away.
no,
Oh yeah. Go lock. We'll bring a special guest star maybe at the end.
Later.
Yeah, because all of these beads.
He just
are,
came trancing in here,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
uh-oh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there was something
Yeah.
around my feet.
There's a little cat prancing around. It's awesome.
Alfie.
Well, it was great. It was so great.
I feel like I've missed out all year. I have not been to a bead show,
Yeah.
bead fest, bead adventure
Well,
for a year.
yeah. Well, we're going
Well,
to do
since
some
Tucson.
fun. We're going to be doing some fun things. We've got coming up in the fall. You and I are traveling to Beads, Baubles, and Jewels.
I'm looking forward to that.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to be filming some segments, and Emily's going to
I'll be your lovely
keep me
assistant.
keep me
Your Vanna
focused.
White.
That's always crazy. And then, of course, we're already planning our Tucson trip in February.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a lot of fun there. So we've got a lot of
Tucson, the
great.
best.
We've
It's not quite all enough to hold me for a
No.
whole year, but it's
yeah,
close.
It's close.
Yeah.
And we've got some fun things planned for coming up in Tucson in February. So we've got a lot of stuff. And Gita, she linked in the comments, you can find that epic bead and button embellish challenge. It's in the comments there. So you can find it. Just click through to that link or just go right to our YouTube channel, the beadshop.com YouTube. So, okay, so let's jump in and start talking about the project. I see a couple of questions already that I want to, I guess, address. People are saying, so we call this the Flute Necklace, right? This is a bead shop classic, you guys. I mean, we've been floating since forever. Brandon today is wearing a piece. We'll have her take it off and I'll show you guys. It's a piece I made Brandon, well, 25 years ago, I think, as a thank you for taking some photos way back in the day. So it's a classic, timeless classic for sure. And some people, you see the reference, it's called a tin cup necklace.
Right. Tin cup was, it's funny when things become so iconic that they have a reference that doesn't really mean anything.
Right, at all.
So Tin Cup was a movie with
Starring Kevin Costner
and Rene Russo.
Yeah, Rene Russo.
And she wore,
Russo.
through the entire show, she wore this one necklace, the whole movie. And
Thread, pearl, thread, pearl, thread,
super
pearl,
simple,
thread, pearl.
pink pearls, I think, with pink thread.
Yeah, or something.
And it was really cute, and it was kind of like the 90210 necklace.
Necklace.
Back in the day,
People,
when we worked in bead stores,
right.
people would come in and say, I want to make that necklace, like they wear on
Right,
90210.
that was the Y necklace.
The Y necklace,
Yes.
which is really a rosary, so it's a way older design than that, but it was just really popular and looked good on everybody.
Yeah,
That's what was so nice
and
about
when
it.
Tin Cup hit, we'd be standing behind the counter at the bead store and we'd be, doing our thing, winding our things, whatever, and people would go, people I'd never seen before.
Yeah.
So I saw this necklace on that movie Tin Cup, and I want to make it. and then people were just hooked.
Yeah.
It was like the gateway drug.
It was the elastic bracelet. It was the first pair of earrings.
Right?
Like, oh,
it was just crazy.
Earrings.
So we still refer to it as the Tin Cup. I wonder if Kevin Costner knows that his movie is also an iconic jewelry style.
It was a very cute little movie.
Dear Kevin Costner.
It was a rom-com.
It was.
It was a little bit of a redemption at the end movie,
It was.
because
don't give it away.
Well, it had a little bit of, it was
okay.
pretty predictable plot. It was not something that was not Oscar worthy or Academy,
Well, I'm composing my letter.
Are you going to write
to
him?
Kevin? Why not?
Yeah.
I wrote to Isaac Mizrahi once and he wrote me back. I did. I said, "Dear Isaac Mizrahi," and we and then he sent me a letter back, and
Nice.
it was so. I feel like we're besties.
Well, I think
Just
we could write to
2
Renee and
letters.
we could write to Kevin and
Yeah,
say,
maybe
you know,
we will.
you have to
Yeah,
understand
Connor,
in a certain segment of the population,
Right.
while no one cares about the movie,
They'd still love that necklace.
that necklace, you need to know, you need to let the
End of
stylist
story.
on that particular
Know what's going
crew
on.
know
Yes.
that necklace
Yes.
was big time.
Big time.
Big time.
Well, let's get to our big time supplies that we've got here
Okay.
because we've got so
Because we've got some new things
much
now.
to share. We've got some new
I'm
things.
totally stoked. So when I started making jewelry, I actually started in metalsmithing and then I got into beads. But I didn't know the proper names for things, and I would go into the bead store and kind of ask these leading questions. Like, how do you connect this to this? And how do you get from here to here?
Right.
And then, like, I sort of knew what I was talking about. And I was so fascinated to find some of these findings because they really do kind of fill the need and do something really, really well.
In
And-
such a classic,
well, and it's
in such a
easy and
classic
predictable
way, yeah.
and sensible sort of way. I was really glad that we expanded on these, and these are these the new ones that we
these
just
are
got
all the new ones.
with
Yeah.
our own platings?
Yeah, so what we did, and when we move the camera, I want to talk about this in a minute, but I do want to talk while we have the bust up here. I want to briefly show these 3 styles that
Sure,
we're going to work
do
with.
it.
Then we'll move the camera, and I want to talk about our new threads, our findings here, and then we'll jump right into the technique. So this is the piece that Janice made, and this is a classic Janice Parsons. Janice has been wearing a
variation.
a variation of this for, I don't know, Janice, type it in the comments. How many years have you
How many
worn,
days a week?
right? And she wears it 24/7 pretty much. So this is her piece that's called Speak Softly. And Speak Softly has the clasp here in front. And we'll also show it a little closer when we're down on the mat here. But you kind of get the overall effect. It's a 2-strander, both strung on individual end tips. And it's a nice mix of freshwater pearl and 3mm melon beads.
I
And
am
the
so
clasp
in love
in the
with those
center.
melon
Yeah,
beads.
it's really great.
Well, and you know, this is the swivel clasp, which really does make a necklace like this that's very lightweight.
Makes
it really
sit
keeps
right all the time.
the movement of it in a good place, and
Yeah.
it keeps the wear down a little bit on the silk, I would imagine.
Yeah.
That it doesn't bind
Rub,
up.
yeah.
Right.
And we'll also examine how she did the center in a little bit because it's a really nice way to have kind of a say something statement at the end.
She built
of
she built a centerpiece out
Yeah,
of this,
out of
and this
this.
is really a Y. It's just a short
a short Y
short
necklace.
tail
Yeah.
Y. But it I love that she built
move
up
this
that
one.
centerpiece.
And so let's go to, where's the
Right in
green
front
one?
of you
Right in
there.
front of me. Right in front of me, Richburg. So this one is a classic Kate. Now this is something that, like Brandwin is wearing, something like that I started stringing a billion years ago. And it's a classic class that I would teach when we had the bead shop brick and mortar, the float necklace. And I'm gonna show you how we do a triple strand very easily into a single end tip. And it's a little trick that I have that's really, really easy. And this is, and then you can make it adjustable with a little bit of chain. So again, this is a super, super classic, really great for bridal season if you want to wear it every day. It's a really,
I think it's one of those
piece.
nice. Not every piece of jewelry that I would say kind of someone who works in an office or in a bank or something can kind of hold off every day. But this is a really great piece. If you wear a blouse and a suit or a blouse
switch
and
this
a
out.
skirt every day, I think that's the kind of style
It's a good
and,
classic.
and classic sort of design that it adds a lot of color and a lot of personality to something that looks a little, maybe it's a little,
It's
not as personal.
right, not
Yeah.
as flat, not as so much as a statement and more of an
Right.
accoutrement.
Right.
Let me just bring
It's
this
truly
around
an
here.
accessory.
There we go.
So we can't get too close on these. Maybe when we
Yeah,
move
flat.
the camera,
yeah,
we'll
we'll
get-
move the
we'll get a
camera,
better-
we'll talk about it. But I wanted you guys to see the silhouettes of these before we brought them down on the pad. So don't worry, we'll give you guys some more close-ups for this. But this piece, and let me raise it up so this kind of shows, this is another float using the entire length of the griffin silk, the entire 2 meters, and it doesn't have a clasp, it's a lariat here. And this is one that I call past and present. past because it kind of has that Art Deco style. It kind of has, you know, kind of a vintage feel to it. And present, meaning that I used lapis stones, which are very grounding and keep you mindful in the present. At least that's the lore around lapis
I also like
stones.
that these are the matte lapis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's been a variety of different kind of new things that people have done to stone, but the matte, I think, is...
It's a nice effect.
It's a really nice effect, and it's something that would be very shiny and kind of sparkly with it. Without the matting, is now a little more subtle, and it's going to age really nicely.
Yeah.
They're going to pick up a little bit of patina from your skin oil, and it's just a really pretty piece.
Yeah, and I think it really adds to kind of the vintage flair of this piece. I also took this inspiration. If any of you have ever been to Hearst Castle down Highway 1 here in California, there's a beautiful indoor pool that is the Lapis pool there. It's one of my favorite places on earth, I'll tell you. It is exquisite. I've always wanted to swim in it. And it's very Art Deco. It's very
Sounds like a fun challenge.
That's right. I'm like,
We can try to throw in one of our photos to the episode notes.
right? Yeah. Oh yeah. Brandon has been there and has taken some wonderful photos. So she'll share a great one for episode notes with Drea. But this is it's really a magical place. My mom and I both really, really love it. So this is also kind of a little bit of an homage. Perhaps I would have been hanging around in the 30s wearing this.
You know, I've never been to
this
Hearst
piece.
Castle.
What? Oh, you know what? That's for another episode. I can't even talk about it.
Well, we'll have a fun. It'll be like a seeing it all anew.
Yeah.
We'll have a fresh trip.
I
you
love
know?
it. I love it.
I've never been to Hearst Castle.
So let's move this around and let's get started and look at some of the pieces we've got here. So Em, you want to grab the camera from
Sure.
Brandon? And let's get this show on the road. So let's get that. Let's get this going on over here. And let's take a look at, and Brandon, can you just flash me the screen real quick so I know where I'm at. So thanks for hanging in there while we move the camera around. Great, this looks good.
Hold on.
You got it there, Em?
No, I can't quite see the...
Sorry,
The
that's
lock
locked,
thing.
so that's unlocked.
Unlocked. Okay,
Nope,
it was...
that's locked. Turn it towards you.
No, you know what? It's
Here.
this little thing right here. I think needs to come off.
No.
Hold
it
on to that. Just
okay.
hold on to it.
Yep.
There we go.
And lock it in.
That's the magnet.
Okay,
It
got
just
it.
slipped off.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. All right, so we're good to go. So, yeah, if you can widen this up just a little bit, Bran, I think we'll be in good shape. So you can see here, you guys, I have all of the end tips for you guys to check out. Do we have any note paper? Em? And the end tips come in two different styles that we carry. Now these end tips right here
No, I don't have any white paper.
are
Sorry. You okay with lined paper?
yeah, I don't care. I just need something. So these end tips that we've gotten that are new for us, we have been looking and trying to find end tips in the exact finishes that we loved from years ago. Okay, and so the finishes, we just couldn't find them. We were looking and trying different suppliers, and so finally we put on our thinking caps and we decided, you know what, we're going to get them plated ourselves. So we did. We went back to a plater, an old school plater who's been in business a billion years and whose plating we really, really admire, and got them plated in all of these wonderful finishes. So if we can maybe get a little tighter on your brand. We've got them in the antique silver, the antiqued brass, the antique copper, a shiny gold, and a shiny silver. And we have them in two different styles. We've got them in this clamshell end tip, and we have them in just kind of the regular, kind of what I call like the little umbrella. They like to stick together a little.
I call them a cup.
Yeah, the little cup end tip, or the little, looks like a little upside down umbrella, kind of.
You know, having them plated ourselves really is, it's a genius way to
Oh,
get
it's
what
a
you're trying
game changer.
to find
Yeah.
yourself. And really finding a plater in this country and having them done here, the quality of them is so much
Yeah.
nicer than anything that you could purchase that's done someplace else. And I think this is it is a game changer.
Yeah.
It's a way to personalize these things, but also to get what you're looking for Pete's
Exactly
sake.
what you're looking for. And they're a heavy plating. They plated them to our very exacting specifications. We have no no lead,
So
all
lead,
done
nickel,
in the
cadmium
US.
free.
Yeah. All done in the US. So these are plated to the best quality that we can get. Now, let me just show you with these end tips, the clamshell at the top, and I'm going to draw this out so you guys can kind of see, kind of greatly magnified, so you can see it here. What the clamshell looks like is like a little clamshell, like this, that has two little caps on it, right? Two little half shells, right? And there's a hole here where the knot of your strand comes through and sits, right? And then the hook is all here, okay? This clamshell I usually use when I have a multiple strand piece like this. Okay, and you can see how that clamshell kind of sits underneath here. So anytime I do like multiple strands or a bigger clasp or something that this scale looks right, maybe I want to cover the knot, that's when I use when I use the clamshell.
I like with bigger thread too.
Larger thread,
Yeah.
exactly. And in the hole, and Janice, she's reading my mind, the clamshell does have a nice big hole, and it fits perfectly with the Griffin 6. And it also works well with the 4, which is what I used here. I'm going to show you how we tie those knots so they're nice and even to go in this clamshell so they don't pull through. Okay, so that's this one. Now the cup end tip that I've got here, it looks like this. It has a little cup and a little hook here. The hole is here, and your thread knot goes down through that way. And that cup, you can see on Janice's piece here, let me pull this in, that with this clasp, you can see that Janice has a jump ring here that she's connected the clasp to. And then where I just had all 3 strands, which you can kind of see here, all 3 strands coming out, okay, thank you, all 3 strands coming out of that single end tip, Janice has the cup end tip with her 2 strands coming out each individually.
If you're doing multiple strands, and it adds a little extra movement maybe to have this happen. I like both looks. I think in the clasp in the front that the 2 strands kind of coming together looks a little bit more.
Right, it looks nice and finished.
Nice
yeah.
finish, and it kind of makes sense. Just having a little bit more room right at the junction.
At the junction here. And if you'll notice here, you guys, what Janice did, and this is something that she always does when she's finishing up the piece. Notice how she's ended right here. Here's the end tip. Here's a nice little metal daisy spacer here. That kind of marries the end of the end tip and the beginning of what we're stringing on the strand. So it kind of has a little metal taper, and then she's gone up and used the melons, and then she's used that 5mm rondelle here. So it's a nice little gradual way of pulling that in. You could also use, in my piece here, you can see kind of up close, I used, I've got thread up against the end tip, but I also, at each little knot that I've tied, I wanted something small, so I used the seed bead. And can you pull that list over so I can see what that is? This is from the
11650. It's the alabaster.
the Mossy Creek one, and this is the dyed gray silver lined alabaster. And so I use that in each of these little stations.
That's all below.
So
nobody.
okay. Well, can you?
No, that's
No,
the very bottom.
let's push out.
That's what I was trying to show you
Oh, okay.
earlier. That's the bottom of
Okay,
that.
I'll push it up.
Sorry.
There we go.
Okay.
Thanks for.
So you can see here that I've used that throughout, and I'll show you this when we move around. okay, when we actually string this one up. So those are the finishes and the flavors. We also have, that we're not going to be using today, we're going to dedicate a whole show to this. Oh, before I bring those in, I want to show you actually the end of this float one, or the lariat one. You can see I ended the lariat also with one of those small cup end tips here in the copper. And so that just connects to this little wire wrap loop that I did at the bottom.
So I know this seems like maybe I'm restating the obvious here, but I've always thought that finishing is sort of the mark of someone who's got some experiences under their belt.
Mm-hmm.
And when you kind of picture in your mind what's going to happen at the ends of the threads,
Mm-hmm.
the better that looks and the less it shows, the
Mm-hmm.
better.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you made a good call here, and especially on this
With just
lariat
that little cup.
with just the little cup.
Mhm.
I almost, if I was making a necklace with this, I probably would have made a clamshell,
Use
just
the
a
clamshell. Mhm.
because it's a little bit bigger, it's a little sturdier,
Right.
and it's holding the whole weight of the necklace. And in this
Right.
case, really, it's not.
Right.
It's only holding the weight of that little dangle.
Right. And that clamshell end tip would have looked okay as well. The clamshell is a little bit bigger, so as you say, Emily, I wanted the hardware to be as unobtrusive as I could. So that's why I chose that
And
clamshell.
for every necklace, you're
that
going to have two
cup.
of these, one at each end.
Exactly. And I'm going
At
to,
least.
yeah, and we're going to show you how we start and stop with these, how they open and close. So don't worry, we're gonna get to that all in due time. So don't stress about that. Okay. And then let's just show Janice's real quick. Let me move that to the side. Let's just show Janice's real quick.
I think it's kind of cool that,
connected.
if you looked at these in a shop, you were thinking, oh, that's really pretty, I might like to purchase that. You probably wouldn't even notice these bead tips.
Right.
They would be the last thing that you would really focus on.
But it's really a high-end, traditional, fancy way of closing things off. So can you see how here's the front of Janice's piece? She used this as the Jardin component, bead component we have here. This is the Ganesh. Which Ganesh is
Peaceful
it?
Ganesh.
The peaceful Ganesh. And this is the just one of our little blush tassels. Now notice how Janice has mixed her metals here, but notice how she's matched her findings all together. And I think that's also really important. It can really bring, and Brendan, can you get kind of tight on here so people can really see it? So people can really, I think it's the mark of kind of having a piece that speaks to it.
Well,
What am I trying to say?
I guess to me this is it's sort of like the finishing ideas that
yeah.
you want to have everything blend together harmoniously.
Right. That's
and
exactly
so that the
right.
sum is greater than the parts. You know, what your finished thing looks like is really better and more interesting maybe than any of the parts were separately.
Yeah.
I love building components like this.
Right. That
as you
little
well know.
that little center. Yeah.
But building components to build into bigger and better things.
Right. A little story.
A little story, yeah, and connecting things all together. It's really the most fun. But again, having everything where it comes together be somewhat seamless and somewhat easy.
That's what I was trying to say. Seamless.
You know, it's all of a piece rather than a bunch of little parts all put together.
thrown together.
Even when you
exactly.
mix your metals, mix it with some purpose.
Mix it mindfully. No, it really, really looks good. And I think you can see here with Janice that swivel clasp. She used two little links right here for the movement. One link over here, and then one link connects the Ganesh, and one link connects the tassel, and then it all goes forward from there. So it's a really, really lovely, beautiful design. I'm going to put this one aside real quick, and then I will, I want to show you just the back of this one, and then we'll talk about thread. The way that I did this guy, it's kind of the thing in reverse. And this could be the front or the back if it were a single. This kind of has a Y necklace kind of feel to it as well. But you can see all three strands come in here to that swivel. And then the chain I could have decorated with more pearls or however I wanted to do it. You could make this as our circle back chain. you could make it as long or as short as you need to adjust. And especially if you're doing this for like weddings or for, people you don't know or for gifts or whatever, this is a great way to add at least an inch or more of
It adds a little
ease.
flexibility. You know, if this is going to be worn at a wedding, many times everybody's hair is up in a bun or an updo, and that little dangle down the back is very feminine.
Yeah.
And it's just a little added. It shows that you thought about the back.
That's a little added piece. And Brandon's going to actually show the one real quick, because I don't even know what the back looks like on this one. I haven't seen this necklace in probably a billion years. So this, and look at what I did here.
Yeah, I know,
It's a
that
Kate
was
Richford
that.
classic. How funny. So this
Well,
is
you're consistent.
I am consistent. I'm nothing if not consistent. This is a piece that I made Brandon, I don't know, as a thank you for doing some photos, probably 25 years ago, right? Probably it's been a while. And so again, this is held up all of those years. The same Griffin silk. This is gray, the gray number 4. And you can see the end, the closure, how I did this exactly the same
And
way.
it looks like it's almost exactly the same
the
chain.
same circle back, right? It's just
Right.
a little
It's
bit
a little
smaller.
ovaler.
Yeah.
So
But-
circle back chain, really a good one for this.
And so it's a good way to do.
I
to
love the
do,
necklace. I really
and,
do.
and, yeah.
And when you were describing the other one, I was like, this sounds exactly
That sounds exactly like my necklace. So it's really, it's a really, really classic. Thanks, Brandon, for I know those beads like the back of my hand. I'm so glad you still have it. That's awesome. Well, let's take a look now. The next thing that we want to look at is let's take a look at the different thread sizes and how those relate to different beads. So let's clear the decks a little bit because I want you guys to be able to see this. We're carrying the threads now in 13 different colors. And I'm not going to rattle off all the colors here from memory, but you'll be able to find them all on beadshop.com. Janice and I and Emily took a look at all of the different colors and made some real decisions about having a nice varied color palette and having a nice, just a lot of nice sizes and choices for you to choose from. So 13 colors and 3 sizes of each. We carry them in a 2, a 4, and a 6.
So these are 2 meter long pieces of silk, and each one of them has a needle already built in and attached.
Right, attached.
So the huge advantage to the needles on these is that
Put our
the
needles
needle
out.
itself is made in the middle of the thread. And if you've ever
Twisted.
twisted threads or fibers to make a thicker rope, you know that at some point when you're twisting, it folds up on itself, and that becomes the rope. So the needle is made in the middle of that, and this allows you to have no bump. So normally, you know, if you're stitching with, if you're doing seed beads or working with a long piece of thread, where the thread goes through the needle,
There's
it's a little bit of a
Yeah.
wide spot. So I think this is a huge advantage. It does mean that you want to be a little bit delicate with
Careful,
the needles.
yeah.
Careful with them. It's easy to wreck them,
Yeah.
and there really isn't a huge fix except to use it doubled after
Yeah.
that.
And they do come, and you can see if I kind of unwind this a little bit
Yep.
at the needle, can you see that's a doubled thread? So the thread has been doubled, just like Emily says. Let me see if I can open it up. Gone through the needle and then twisted. There we go. You can kind of see. And that is repeated stringing back and forth and putting beads over
And
the top.
forcing it onto into too
Beads
small a hole.
that are too small. Yep,
a
that's
little
gonna
bit too small.
that's gonna be a place where this is going to shred. Okay, so let's start with the different sizes so you can see what is used for what. So this is a size 2, and I've got the size 2 here in the olive because Janice and I were both like, what, olive, this is the best thing ever, we love this color.
Yeah, that's a great color.
And so the way it comes is, it comes in this package like this, right? So we're gonna open it up like this, and we are gonna pull this out. And the way it comes is on a card, like so. The needle is kind of pushed through one of these little openings in the cardboard and kind of put to the back. You need to be real careful or at least I try to, especially with this size 2 needle because it's so thin.
Mm-hmm.
The more that you kind of screw around with it at this point, the more it wants to curl. See how it's kind of curled like this? And that curl kind of stays in there. It doesn't really...
It's not such a happy thing.
Yeah, it doesn't really straighten out so much, okay? So we can pull it off like this, very carefully. We pull it off, and then we unwind it, all right? And Bran, I don't know if you can get in any tighter so people can kind of see this thread. I'm going to unwind it as I go here, trying not to get off camera. But see how when you unwind this thread, it has a crimp to it, okay, just from being wound on the card. And just as a reminder, it is silk. It's not nylon thread, it's silk thread, so it's a natural fiber. So it's going to, what is it going to do, Em?
Stretch.
Yes, it's going to stretch.
It's going to grow.
So it is. So I like to pre-stretch this cord, and I'm going to show you how I do this. So see how it just comes off, and it's kind of all kind of funky.
It's got little kinks in it.
Right, little kinks. So what I do, and this is completely unorthodox of me, but this is how I've always stretched my thread. What I do is I leave the little end in the card, and what I do is I put this card on the ground, on the floor, on the carpet, and I put my foot over it.
Right.
And then I hold this, I pull all the way in like a big stretching exercise, and it stretches those kinks out. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do that real quick. I'm going to put it right on the floor, right here by my foot that you can't see, but I'm going to put my foot on that, and I just stretch, and you can kind of see my hands stretching it as I go.
You'll actually sort of feel that stretch.
Yeah.
You know, if this is hard on your hands,
And I'm going to do this real quick.
difficult for you to
As I do this here.
because it's you're not able to.
And we'll have a picture in the
mobility-wise.
episode notes. Brandon's taking a quick picture of me stretching this thread
With a bar across
and with a bar across my face. And now I'm going to pull it back in, and you can see from that stretching, you can
Kinks are
see
gone.
the kinks are mostly gone. I didn't pull it quite as hard. Maybe I'll pull it here one more time.
So
I'm gonna
I
really
like
stretch
to
this.
stretch my thread by putting a coffee cup on each end,
Yeah,
a mug.
you could do that.
So
a
I
mug.
kind of temporarily
Yeah.
tie it on each end, and I'll hang it over a door.
Yeah, and you can do that overnight.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
that tends to pull out a
That
lot of the
weight
stretch
does
out.
it too, yeah. But I am always impatient, and I'm not a great pre-planner, right? What a surprise.
Really?
So,
And I usually just stretch it as I go.
yeah, you
So,
can do that too. But you can see that stretch, the kinks have really stretched out of it. So this number 2, let me show you here. If I were going to start a piece on this number 2, okay, I will come in and I'm going to use the end of my thread here because my needle is on this side here. So I want to work at this end so that when if I have any thread left, I guess is what I'm trying to say, I can reuse it, right? I don't want to work up here and then cut it off and then not have this thread.
So you know what I use that last little bit of thread for
What's
when
that?
there's leftovers? Is I put it back on the card and I use it to test.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
you
can always
test.
use it to test.
It's a great idea.
So I know what size I might.
what size you're going to use
wanna
for
use.
different
Yeah.
things.
'Cause that's
But
always
sometimes you do
That's always
need
a little bit of a puzzle
Yeah,
when you first get
to
started.
do that test. So here is my thread, and I'm going to tie a knot, all right? And I'm going to, I'm just going to make a loop like this, and I'm going to come through, and I'm going to go through once, and I'm going to go through twice, and I'm going to go through actually a third time. So I make a nice fat knot, and as I pull that knot in, can you see how, and Brandon, can you get real tight on this? Because it's a little far away. Yeah. Let's get in there. So people can really see this knot. So see how instead of tying 3 little knots like this, like once, and then trying to tie a knot again like this, I can't even do it with this little tiny piece of thread. But some people try and make a little knot and then tie a knot over the top of that and a knot over the top of that. And
That's
then you have kind of this wonky, kind of funky little knot that kind of separates, and then you have 3 little knots that are going to pull right through your end tip. So let me put that end tip on. So now, when you put on your end tip, you want to think about the direction that the end tip wants to sit. So this is going to face the clasp, the hook is. Can you hand me the clasp that's there? And so we want to make sure that the hook is facing out, right? So when I put on my needle goes down through the end tip. And Emily, can you open these up and take those out?
Sure.
It goes through the end tip, down through the cup, and see where my little knot is sitting? That's going to eventually come down and sit right there in the cup, okay? But what I want to do first is I want to add a little bit of glue to that knot, because just tying the knot and not gluing is not going to hold.
It's not enough.
It's not enough, for sure.
Cannot.
Okay. So can you just take them off the card and
Sure.
get them ready to go? So I'm going to try and open this up. There we go. And I'm going to add a little bit of hypo cement to that knot, and I've got it right here on my baggie. And I really soak that knot in there. And I use hypo cement because the resulting knot will be flexible. And
I also find that
not
regular super glue, if you try to use that on thread, it tends to wick down the thread
exactly.
a little bit.
And it'll stiffen this last portion of the thread.
Right, and it might
Yeah.
glue your beads to your thread.
Yeah, and we don't want that to
Which
happen.
you don't really want to happen.
Yeah. And so I'm going to slide, then I'm going to move this and slide this up, and I'll wait to cut that tail off. I usually like to wait 24 hours.
You can keep working
Now,
though. You
yeah,
don't have to
no,
wait for
exactly.
that.
You don't have to wait. So what I will do, if I'm just stringing beads, one bead after another, I am going to start with a bead here, okay? And so I put a bead, remember this is size 2, so a size 2 is perfect for really fine gemstones, all of our little gemstones that we have. And I'm actually going to knot these in groups of 3 because these stones are so small. So I'm going to put 3 on, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to just pull it on, and I know that it's the right size because my needle just went right through
Slid right
that
on.
whole size,
Yep.
right? Slid right through. And my beads, I can feel that the thread fills up the hole, but it's not too, it's not wobbling around on the thread, and I don't have to pull it so it will damage the thread.
Right.
Okay. So the way that I begin to tie a knot with this type of thread, and I do it a little bit differently than when I'm doing like a 2-strander or something like that, and that's where this knotting tweezer really comes into play. Okay. So I've got my little group of beads here, and there's no knot between the bottom of that end tip and the first bead. Okay. And so I will make a loop by just pinching the thread, wrapping the thread around my fingers, and passing the thread through the loop. Okay? And I'm working all the way at this opposite end, so I've got a lot of thread to pull through.
That's a place where the thread can start to wear a little bit. So if you have too tight a fit, that can give you more problems later on.
And so I'm going to go ahead and, with my knotting tweezer, I'm going to put one leg of the knotting tweezer inside the loop of the knot, right? And one sits on the outside, right here. And I'm going to pinch where I want my knot to eventually sit,
Right?
right?
So you're picking the spot and you're making the knot hit there.
Right, so if my loop, let's say that my loop is all the way down here.
Correct.
Well, that's okay. All the way down here, almost off camera. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to nudge it up here with my knotting tweezers. If I need to make the loop bigger, that's fine. Just nudge it up, right? Knotting tweezer are your friends. Then I want to grab inside the knot with one leg, outside the knot with the other. Pinch, but hold it open just a little. And I'm going to just pull that knot tight. Pull it tight, pull it tight. Now, before I tighten it up, you guys, I'm going to make sure that it's right up next to the bead. Now, this is the trick here, okay? I take the knotting tweezer out of the knot. Can you see how the knot is still open? Right there. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to, with my tweezer, I'm going to push the knot towards the beads and the thread towards me. All right? So here it is. I'm pressing, just pushing the knot gently away from me and pulling the thread towards me. Okay? Ta-da! And there's my knot sitting just perfectly. Let's do another 3.
So is this for a float now, or is this
I
for,
do it for both ways,
Okay.
but I want to show you just how this small one would go.
Okay.
So for my next, if I were using the size 4 strand, do I have the 4 ready to go?
Yep. Sorry, I had them stashed right here.
Okay. So this is the size 4, and the size 4, what I'll do is I'll tie a knot, and maybe I'll just go through once, and maybe I'll go through twice like this, and there's that knot. I'll glue it. Now this knot could sit both in that traditional cup end tip or in the clamshell, and I'll put the clamshell through here. And can you see how that wire needle just likes to kink, and there's nothing really, you can kind of straighten it a little bit with your fingers, but it just kind of stays pretty quick, pretty wrinkly. So now you can see how, see that knot, that little doubled over knot? It doesn't want to pull through that hole. So that's a nice sized knot for this loop, okay? So that one, and then you would continue on. Things like freshwater pearls work really great for these. There are really, I think the number 4, the size 4, is really the most all-purpose, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, Lynn Carling was talking about using her awl, and of course, I have my awl right here.
Yeah, you could use your awl for that.
I do use
Can I have the
awls,
6?
and I use tweezers and awls for different jobs. So I find that if I'm knotting like you are with single thread,
And here's the 6.
I find that using a tweezer actually gives me a better knot,
Better control.
better control, more ease in placement. But if I'm knotting with double thread, I use my awl because it's faster.
Yeah, it is faster. And so for this size 6 thread, I just now do a single loop through.
Oh, I always go through
I'll
twice.
tighten it up, but this gives me a pretty big knot for this size 6. And for these size end tips, thank y'all. These size end tips, let me get a clamshell. If I put it through here, you can see that hole is really generous. So I just pull it on, and you can see, maybe, that knot in the 6 is big enough so it's not going to pull through at all. Now, with the end tips,
You're doing fine, but you're right at the very
Okay.
edge, so just to keep in mind.
so the end tip, the cup one, this little traditional end tip, with the size 6, it'll work with the 4, and on the 6 you kind of have to pop it over that needle, and so it does still work, but you can see that the scale of that end tip and the scale of the thread is a little off,
Right.
but it will work.
So the proportions are a little bit different, and maybe not as
There we go.
gracious.
Yeah, it's pleasing to the eye. And something like this, with this size 6, it's great for larger round stones,
Oh,
like
yeah.
the 8mm or even the 6mm would work on that. But things that have a little more of a generous hole work nicely with this size 6. And again, if you're doing floats, it just depends on the bead you choose and how delicate you want your thread to look.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a personal question?
You sure can.
All right. So in this group, and since we're talking about the holes in the bead, in this group of beads, you have a bunch of different types of beads.
Yeah.
So you have a seed bead, a shadow, a
Get
glass
stuff out of the
bead,
way.
a pearl, another glass bead, a hishi, a pearl, and another seed bead. So you chose, I think, a 4,
Right.
because this would fit through
All of them.
all of them, and most importantly, the smallest hole bead that you had.
Exactly right.
Right?
Yeah. And so we're actually going to move to looking at this piece, so I'm glad you pulled it out there. And then will you wind that
I
6?
would be delighted.
So let's take a look at actually starting this piece here, okay? What I do is, and I've started it already for you with this size 4, I've started by putting my my knot there. I'll add some glue, but I'll add a little bit of glue later because you saw me do that. And now to begin, I'll just randomly choose a strand, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to come down here, and I'm just going to start with my bead group. So the first strand, or the first knot that you put in, doesn't really matter where you put it.
Right.
I'm just going to choose a place. I'm going to make a loop, an overhand knot, pull this through, and I'm not going to even use my tweezer. I'll just put my finger kind of where I want it to go, and where it lands, it lands. So there's my first knot.
Got it.
Now the beads that I've chosen for this, and I've got a little bit of a grouping right here that I'll pull out. You can see I've used, like Emily said, kind of a variety of different beads. But you can see that the hole size on a lot of these beads are pretty big. See that hematite rondelle? That's a giant hole in there. It's pretty big.
Giant.
Giant.
Well,
in
and
bead.
actually the Hishi has an
a
enormous
real big
hole. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and if you take a look, the knot size that this size 4 ties isn't huge.
Right.
So what I did was I chose a little seed bead, right? And you can, what I do is I put a little seed bead on either side of this segment so that it acts kind of like a little stopper.
Yep.
Okay? So I'm going to put the seed bead on, and then I'm just going to put on a random group of beads, whatever it is, doesn't matter. So I'm going to put this and this thing here, and I don't know, I'm not even watching what I'm doing. And then I'm going to finish off with another small seed bead. Okay? And I'll slide that sucker all the way down. Okay? Slide, slide, slide. Okay? Then here's my segment. Okay? Now the thing is, and this design Emily and I were talking about earlier today, is all about the precision of where you put the knot.
You know, it cannot be stated strongly enough how important it is that the knots hold the beads in place exactly.
Right,
And
because we don't want a lot of fidgeting around with the
right,
beads.
and if that happens, it's actually gonna be wear and tear on the thread down the road, which is, you know, knotting between beads with silk is something that is, I want to say that it has a lifespan or to it. It's longer than elastic, but maybe not as long as soft flex.
Yeah, it does have a
And
lifespan.
so when things wear out, we'd like them to wear as long as possible, and then it might have to be replaced or redone. And I noticed somebody was talking about earlier on the comment section that she has lots of necklaces like this that where the thread has broken, the bead tip is still intact, but the thread is broken.
is broken, yeah.
So that's pretty common.
Yeah. So you can see, I'm just going to, like I did before, there's my loop. I've got one leg of the tweezer on the inside, one on the outside. I kind of gently grab that thread, not too tight, and I push. I'm working on a mat so that the tips of my tweezers are locked into that mat so that my knot doesn't jump off the end of my tweezer.
Right.
Okay? Then I open this up, really gently just finish pushing that knot the rest of the way. Take the knot off the tweezer. Don't tighten it yet. But now I'm going to push the knot away from me and pull.
And so typically on a
Towards me.
knotting with double thread, you would be able to separate the two strands to
And
move
give it
the
a little
knot.
tug, exactly.
But you would also use the next bead along to be your pusher, to push it close to
yeah, you can do that
where
as
you're
well.
working.
Yeah. And you can just be really arbitrary about where the spacing's going to happen. Right?
That's where I would have a hard time.
Well, what you can do, and we have a couple of tricks that we're going to share with you, but for this float, this kind of multi-level kind of, you know, sit where they may kind of design, I don't worry about where things are sitting too much. Let me put this on, and then I'll put this on again. I'll tie that knot again. So this one more time. And then, Emily, you're going to show that little trick.
Sure. Can I use the one you've got working there?
Actually, I was going to work on this one
Come on.
to get it to the other side.
All right.
Yeah.
Sure.
So,
All right. Well, then I'm going to use
just
this
wanna
guy
do
right
it.
here.
Yeah, I would just go ahead and use that guy.
Yeah.
So then, see, there's my little loop, and I'm just going to come in and I'll tighten that up. So why don't we take a look, Brandon, at what Emily's going to show about spacing, and then I'll show you my little spacing trick. But I'm going to get quickly to the other side of this so I can show you how to round the corner.
Yeah. Heading for home.
Heading for home.
So I also like making floats, but I tend to be a little bit more consistent-minded in this case.
And with your spacing.
With my spacing. So one of the things that I often think about is spacing is like it's a negative space. So it's as important as the beads that I'm putting on, right? What the distance is between this bead and the next bead and the next group of spaces. So one thing that I really like to do is set up a measurement. And there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can have a ruler and you can measure just with your little flat ruler that you'd like to have your space between the beads or the bead groups be 1 inch. I do think with floats that when you get out to 2 inches, it's about the max that I would do, because the thread begins to kind of wobble around in between the groups. So I'm under 2 inches, and I pick a space. I can put my knot right where I want to because I'm going to use my tweezers, or I can use a measuring device. And this little measuring device is a little clipping from a drink straw or a bit of tubing. And I took my...
Like a little coffee straw works real well, right?
The same ones I use often for starting bead crochet. So I used my thread snips to go straight across the straw, right along it, and slit it.
And the length of that straw is the space that you want in between,
Correct.
right?
And I can make that length any one I might want. This is a 3/4 of an inch-ish. And I slide the straw on like I would a bead. Slide it all the way down. And it's going to bump up against the existing beads. Okay? And that gives me a place to put my knot, and then a spacer that's easily removable. So I can
it's like a little
measure each
bumper.
time.
Yeah.
Right? And Kate and I do our pearl knotting a little bit differently. I just was going to show you what I like to do with the tweezer. And I had a really good friend who taught me this little trick after I had been knotting for quite some time and never really liked the tweezer method, but I kind of came around to it. So I make that same knot that Kate does, an overhand knot, and I reach into it with my tweezer, and I just lightly grasp the thread. And I bring my knot down, and I push it off the end of the tweezer. So now I'm on one bar, one jaw, just like Kate was. And I bring the thread then around towards me underneath the tweezer jaws and tighten it. And I remove my little measuring tool by sliding it off. And now I can actually do the same job that you did. Push down on that a little bit with my tweezer.
Just to make sure
It's tight.
Compact knot.
And as long as I continue to consistently do this with every knot, my knot distance now will come out the same. And you can make different length straws for different projects. Let me give you one hint. If you have multiple sizes of lengths of straws out on your work table, it's a really good idea to get rid of all of the one that you're not using. Put them away. Put them in a little cup, put them off to the side. Otherwise, you'll be thinking you're measuring right along, and suddenly your distance are different. And I like this green color with these green beads. It does darken the beads up just a smidge, but I like that. So let me show you that again. I'm going to go around and make my knot. And while the loop of the knot is quite large and open, I'm going to reach in with my tweezer, and I'm just going to hang on to the thread right at the top of the beads. And I'm actually put a little pressure downwards so that the beads stay close to that first knot. I'm going to bring my knot down to the tip of the beads, a little tighter, slip it off the front of the jaws and underneath the tweezer jaws, and pull it up tight.
It's such a clever way of doing it. And I do that once in a while.
Slide it off, and then I'm going to push down again.
Looks so good. And, you know, if you're doing a single strand, it really does look best, I think, if they're fairly even.
You know, I kind of go back and forth.
I eyeball it a lot though.
Sure.
But I do use this trick, and I think it's a great
And
one.
I think this this trick works especially nicely when we have maybe a smaller or larger amount of space. If we're kind of picking kind of an average space, like this is about 3/4 of an inch, you know, if we're close to that 3/4 of an inch number, we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
But if we're doing really, really small spaces or really, really big ones, then we want to be a little bit more precise. Okay, wrap it around. Make my knot. Reach into the loop of the knot. And I'm just grasping the thread right at the top of that tube, right? So it actually can't get away. I'm going to bring the thread down to the, tightening it up just to the tip, off the tips, and letting it fall around just at the top of the tube and under the jaws. And that kind of gives me something to pull against. One thing you want to be a little mindful of here is not to tighten the thread across the jaws of the tool. These tweezers can be a little bit sharp on their edges.
Right, so you want to be careful not to slice that thread open.
Right. It's nothing more disappointing than wrecking
Wah,
your
wah.
project right while you're
Yeah.
making it. Right? Didn't even give you a chance to try it out.
So I'm almost there.
And the only
with
place,
this.
Ellen, the only place I use glue is on the first and last knots.
That's exactly right. That is
Really don't need any more than that.
Nope.
These knots are pretty secure. The silk itself is quite slippery, but it has a little bit of toothiness to it, so it really holds the knots nicely.
Yeah, and it stays where you put it.
I think the bigger sizes of silk, you know, I like this kind of material for knotting, just without spaces, because I think the twist is very pretty. It does have a little bit more of a visible twist to it, and that's one of the things that I think it adds to the design of
Yeah.
a tin cup or a illusion
float,
knot,
yeah.
illusion or floating
Yeah.
necklace. All right,
Yeah.
let's go around again.
And there we go.
All right, right down. Can you see how it's kind of slipping off the jaws of the tool, and then towards me a little bit? Tight. Lift up my tool, press down on the knot. So if I was knotting one bead right after the next, or even one little group of 3 right after the next, I would use those beads as well as the pusher, right?
Right. It helps you kind of settle that knot right where you want it to be.
Yep.
So I'm almost ready to show you how to turn a corner. We're going to turn a corner, and then I'm also going to show you how to close off.
I'm going to do one more here.
Great. That'll give me just the right amount of time.
So there's my measurement again.
I need.
Tie the knot around my fingers. I'll reach into the knot and grasp at the top of the tube. Make that knot a bit smaller, smaller still, and then let it fall off the front and come underneath the jaw of the tool. And you should then be on only one jaw.
And for this, I do pre-string my beads. Sometimes Sharon was asking, do we recommend pre-stringing? But, pardon me, I don't usually with floats.
You know, with floats, you're actually using so few beads that I don't know
Yeah.
that it's a huge time saver. With a
And-
regular knotted necklace, I think it's very much a
Very
time
much
saver.
a time saver, yeah. And something like this, I am kind of composing each little
Unit as you go
unit
along.
as I go, so pardon my reach here.
Sure.
I just want to grab these guys. Yeah, I don't want to, I kind of design on the fly.
You know, what's another thing that's nice about this float necklace is it actually goes pretty quickly.
It does go quickly.
Because you're making distance, you know, and I've only had to tie 2, 4, 6 knots to go 3 inches.
Yeah, and you're like a third of the way home.
right?
Right.
So it's moving along really nicely, which I always appreciate.
And let me know when you're done, because I am ready.
So if you have folks that want you to make dress all the jewelry for the wedding, their wedding, say, yes, we can make these little float necklaces. They're great.
Yes, they're a great one.
Yeah.
A really good one.
How do I know? My niece had
Yeah.
9 attendants and 2
Wow.
flower girls.
Wow. It's
Right?
a lot of knots, Emily.
Well, no, I did wire wrapping.
Well, see, a lot of wire wraps too.
Yeah, from scratch, the whole thing.
So this looks great, and look
Yeah,
at how
it's going
nice
right
and
along.
even those are. Isn't that great?
So the distance is always the same
That
in
little
between that little straw. So any little bit of tubing or a coffee stir or drink straw. You know, sometimes when I have taught this class, I say, first we're going to go out for cocktails.
That's right. That's right. To get a cocktail straw. So let me show you guys what I've got going on here. So this is just a single strand here, and you can see
Wow,
I
you're
started.
fast.
I'm a fast knotter.
Yeah, you are.
I started on this side over
You're
here,
out of the screen.
right, and then
All right, come to me. To me.
let's scoot it over. Okay,
There we go.
great. So so you can see I've started here. This is where I started. I've knotted, and I just really knotted this on the fly. And you can see my kind of default is kind of this this space in between. So it's fairly even, right? Even enough, at least, for this kind of multi-stranded float. So the way I finish is I'm going to come in, tie my last knot like this, and then I'm going to leave a little bit of thread here at the end. And first, before I tie my knot, I'm going to put my second end tip on. Okay? So, the end tip, this time, where before I came down through the cup of the clamshell, this time I'm going to go up through the bottom.
From the outside in.
Yep, and I just slide it on. So now I'm going to slide it down to about a little past where I want it to be. And I'm going to tie my knot. And the knot I'm going to tie that overhand knot through once, through twice, like that. And then, since again it's fairly arbitrary, I'm just going to slide it where I want it to be, kind of, and tighten it up. And I can just use my fingers there. Okay. Now, if I were ending this piece here, I could add my glue, let it sit, cut it off, call it a day. But I'm going to turn around and go back where I came, okay? So that knot acts like a little stopper. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to send my needle,
Reverse the bus.
yep, back down through, if I can see it there. You get a little closer to my eyes. I send it back down through the end tip, and the knot, I'll show you. I'll pull it out here so you can see it. The knot acts like a stopper. Can you see that? So I'll go this way, through, back down, and that knot is a stopper right there. Now I'm going to go back and do my second strand of the bunch. Now this is also where I don't do a lot of measuring here. I just look and I go, hey, maybe I need to start my section about right here. So I'm going to grab that where I want it to be, make my loop, put my thread through.
Right.
And I can just kind of slide it around where I want it to be, kind of maybe about right here. And don't sweat it too much, especially if you have multiple strands. These don't have to lie exactly
Well, and
where
the
they
multiple
need to
strand,
go.
it's more the effect than more
Right.
the effect than of all of them
Let me
together
get some
than
of this
one at a
stuff.
time.
Can you hand me the rondelles as well?
Sure.
Let's get a few more of these beads out and running. Here. So then I just come in and I start putting my next segments on. So I just put my seed bead and then whatever beads I'm using here. And again, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the individual units I'm putting on. I'm trusting that as a whole picture, they will look good. So I slide this down and you can see, all right, there it is. There's my little unit. So I'm going to come in, tie my loop, slide this through, and then I will just continue as before. Slide that up and push the knot into place, and you're good to go. And then I just continue down, like maybe I want my next segment. about right there.
Mhm.
So I'll tie a little knot and just continue going. Pretty straight forward. Again, it's a little far from my vision. I can't see. There we go. And then I'll just slide this up and there you have it. And then I'll continue all the way across on this side. And then when I get down to this end tip, let me untangle it here. What I would do is I'll go through the end tip, right? And I'll kind of try and size it. Let's pretend that there's beads on all this. It's kind of hard to get it all in the shot, but I'll try and size it so there's just a slight bit of graduation, not a lot. I'll pull the end tip down, tie the knot, send it back through. Okay? Knot, 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 knot again until I end up on this side. And then I want to show you how I'm going to finish that off.
Well, and this is one of those times where that big hole in the clamshell is perfect.
Perfect for it.
It's exactly what you needed.
If I have an end, I'm actually going to close this one off. It's a little small, but
That's okay.
it'll work. So I'm going to add one more section on this one, and I'll show you how this works. I'll put on my little 3. Now let's pretend that this is a really long piece, and it's a finished necklace. Where we started that little cup end tip, I'm going to end with a little 3-strander, or a little 3 bead unit, right? 1, 2, and 3. Slide that bad boy on. Now, this is especially true when I'm ending. There's two things to consider here. Okay, and let me get where's my other size 6 strand? Did Emily wind that up? Yeah, hand me that one, Bran. That's perfect. Let me just put a couple of beads on this one because I want you guys to see the difference here of how we would put on something that had a float and something that has a float and something that's right up against that bead. So there's such an art. There's so many ways to that you kind of have to think about this, just depending on what how your beads are going to be closed. Okay, so let's say that this is my final section here on this one. So let's first start with an end tip that's right up next to some beads. All right, so we use the little cup end tip. It goes on in the opposite direction, right, as it did when we put it on. So it goes up through the bottom of the end tip, slides all the way, right? And so my end tip has to live here. But it's always really hard to try and tie a knot and push it down into the cup. So I'm going to show you a little trick here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave about, I don't know, 3 inches of thread here. And remember, way at the beginning of this broadcast, Emily and I talked about how this was a doubled strand, right? Well, this is really when those double strands, whoops, sorry, I hit the camera here, when those double strands really do their work.
They really pay off.
It really pays off. What I do here is, with that double strand, I unfurl it. And can you see here? Here are my 2 strands. And I'm just going to unfurl, untwist, unwind, open up all of these.
Make 1 into 2.
Right? And so I've got 2 strands coming off here. Now I'm just going to tie tying a square knot down into the cup of that end tip. Now we want to make that cup or that knot fat enough so that the end tip doesn't fall off the end.
Right.
So we're going to start, and Bran, we're pretty tight in there. I want to make sure everybody can see this. So I'm going to start with my first knot. It's a square knot. It's just like the knot you use to tie your shoe. I'm going to make a loop, pass the thread through once, twice, 3 times. All right? Down into the cup. See that? And that was right, left over right. Now I'm going to reverse and do right over left, maybe just twice times this time. And see how it also ties down into the cup of that end tip. I've tied a nice firm knot. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to get my little baggie back, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue right in there, okay? And I put that little dot of glue right in there, and I think I've glued this one before. I would let both of those dry 24 hours, right? And once they're dry, and this one's fairly dry over here, so I'm going to clip this. I wouldn't normally, but I will do so now. I'm going to clip that. Now, to close, to add a clasp onto this, you can decide, depending on the clasp, if the clasp has enough room for the end, I can just apply it directly into the end tip. And let's see, this one I would judge has the right amount of room. I just get my chain nose plier, and really carefully, you don't want to crush it. You want to maintain the loop portion of that. I just come in and I gently coax it, that tip of the end tip, inside the cup. And see how much room I've got there? That's all you have to do.
So that movement room, it keeps things from binding, keeps things from getting twisted up. If you didn't have enough room, you would add a jump ring?
Add a jump ring, exactly. Perfect. And so the other side, don't we have jump rings here? We can add, I would just add, I'll clip this away later, but you could just add a little jump ring is a great way, or a soldered ring is a great one for this. I have a jump ring here, so I'm just going to close it. But our soldered rings are perfect for this.
For the other side of
the
clasp?
For the other side, yeah. And I'll put it right in there. And again, I would have cut these strands off, but I'll just go ahead and close it. Now, for the clamshell, it's a little different, right? I'm going to put that aside. And let's pretend that this is a float, okay? So I'm going to tie the clamshell. I'm going to put the clamshell on, like, out here, so there's no bead next to it. All I would do is I'd get my thread, kind of like you saw me before. You get the needle. Where's that needle? I'd slide this on. Slide it on down, just like I did before when I kind of turned the corner. I'll figure out where I want my knot, tie the knot, and, you know, for this ending knot, I would probably maybe do this twice. I don't know. A 2-time knot, especially if this were a size 4, I would tie it at least twice. This size 6, it makes a pretty big knot, but it doesn't hurt if I go through twice. Okay, so see, there's my knot. I'll get our friend, the GS Hypo, back. I'll glue it, glue it, glue it. Let it sit again overnight to really let that knot have a time to sit.
Dry.
And dry. And let's just pretend that it's been 24 hours. I'm going to clip it away. Clip. Then I slide my end tip up. Now, the way that we close these guys up is I'm going to bring my little end of the hook, and this would be over chain or whatever it is. I grab that end and I curl it. I'll show you the side view. I curl it so there's room there. And I might give it a slight, just a slight hug with my pliers so that, thanks Em, so it closes. But you really want to make sure that this end tip, the loop on this, is closed. Okay? Then I go ahead and I squeeze the clamshell closed just gently. Let me see if you guys, am I in the right position so you can see this?
Because you don't want a pancake out of these clamshells.
No.
You really want
You
them
just
to
wanna-
look a little bit like a bead.
Yeah.
And as they get closed up, so I always think of, with moving metal, most of the time it's better to do a few small squeezes
Exactly, then one giant.
than one Vulcan
smash.
death grip.
Yeah.
Otherwise, then
Exactly.
you end up with a pancake, and it's not so pretty.
And can you see how just the tip of that hook is almost resting inside the clamshell?
Mhm.
The clamshell kind of covers that little tip so it protects it just enough.
So I do find that clamshells are something that can fail if someone comes up to you and some 2-year-old tries to do a pull-up on your necklace, or it gets caught on something and it breaks away. But in a way, this is a little bit of a safety feature, I think.
Yeah,
It means that the thread does not break, but the loop on the clamshell can open.
we'll probably go.
And then
if
you can
gets
redo
pulled.
it. Easy enough.
Yeah, and this, I think that really makes sure, the thing that I see where people kind of fail most of the time is that they smash that hook, so that hook is smashed on
And
the
you're
end.
kind of killing it then.
Yeah.
You're killing it. You don't have
This
any
has no
flexibility.
movement. Yeah,
no
so
movement
you
there.
really want to make sure that loops rather than smashes. Okay, so again, just to show you which closures we used on these 3 necklaces, let me put that aside, and let me just scoot this aside, and then I'll show you.
I was looking for the other one and I put it on.
There it is. So Janice's piece here, she used the regular cup end tips, and she has 2 separate strands that she did, and those terminated in the jump rings there.
You have
Right.
the other one by your coffee cup.
And, oh great. And again, you can see all of these finished pieces on the project maps and everything on beadshop.com. Karen did a beautiful job of showing the different project maps, so you'll be able to see that. These guys I used here at the bottom. I also used that little cup end tip, and you can see I terminated it. There's no thread in between, so you need to separate that thread and tie the knot down into the cup, so those look nice. You could also, this would make a fantastic earring design, right, if we isolated that.
Oh, I think that would be really
and we
pretty.
put this
Yeah.
on an eye pin, and then we connected that to some kind of an ear wire. It would make a great companion earring to this.
And you know, this I really like. I wanted to give you a little props for this
Oh,
piece
thanks.
because
Thank
I
you.
really think that taking the 3 sizes of lapis and putting them together like this, it is definitely a vintage-esque inspired.
The lariat style.
Yeah.
It's just simply
Oh.
beautiful.
And
Thanks,
having,
thanks.
but it also has a bit of a modern kind of
Yeah.
vibe to it,
Oh,
you know?
Thanks.
Yeah, I think you did a really nice job. Kate.
Thanks. Oh, this piece really spoke to me. I dig it.
I think that's one we're really lucky to have seen it in person, because it really does.
Yeah, it looks nice
moves
on.
so nicely.
Mhm.
And again, you can see the spacing on this. We were talking about spacing. You can see some of, like these 2 aren't exactly the same width, but you know, who cares?
Right.
Doesn't matter. I just
You know,
really,
it's
I really
interesting,
eyeballed
these-
this guy.
You're building a bead out of other beads.
Yeah, out of
you
like
know?
a unit. Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's not as, it's a subtle thing. It's not used as much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really dig that one. And you can see this closure here, I just did with the passing, the going back and forth, tying the stopper knot, then back, stopper knot, then back, and then finishing it off. So that has the single clamshell. You could make this, you know, more of a multiple strand. I would just add another clamshell end tip over here and then do as many. Usually I do these with 2 end tips and a 5 strand.
Right.
So 2 strands in one, 3 in the other. They look really great. So it just depends on what works for you. Okay. So so I think we're set. I don't think there are any other comments. So did you knot it so it fit inside the bead? So Ellen, I'm not really sure I understand your question, but if you're talking about the clamshell, yeah, the knot is sitting in there, And then all of these knots are on the outside of the beads here. So, all right, well, let's go ahead and turn this show around, give that back to Barandowin, and we will, we'll end it all, end the broadcast.
Go.
Yes, there we go. Put that over.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
And then,
It's blown out for a little bit.
and then
back
again,
there.
with the, you can find all of the
Oh,
materials.
there's shoes.
There we go. We got it. We're good. We're back.
good.
Sometimes moving the camera is a little
It blew out everything, but you know.
is a
then
little crazy. So
we got
thanks
set,
for
so.
thanks for bearing with us. So all of the materials lists that we have, and Emily, will you hand me
I will.
the paper? We have everything broken down here, the 3 materials lists. If you go right to our website at beadshop.com
Mm-hmm.
and you go to the project, the silk float away necklaces, under past and present, which is the Lapis, the Speak Softly, which is Janice's with the Ganesh in the front, and then the Mossy Creek, which is my 3-strander. All of the lists of all the materials are there, the silk sizes, all of that, so you can check everything out there. There's also a list of tools. Of course, we used some pliers, we used the knotting tweezers. If you don't carry or if you don't have the knotting tweezers yet, you guys, I recommend adding those to your stash.
They're
such
an
a
indispensable
handy
tool. Yeah,
as
for
you
sure.
saw us do today.
And Ellen's question was about how the faceted
Oh, it's a head pin.
Oh yeah, this little
Dang.
closure, the dangle, I just wrapped as I would an earring on a head
Mhm.
pin. So it's the 2-inch 20-gauge copper head pin is how I did that. So right, so today is July 25th, almost the end of July. So if you're watching this live, we have, as always, we like to do some fun things for Facebook Live. We have a little discount for you today. We thought that since we're using so many pearls and so many stones, that we would knock 25% off all of our pearl strands and all 4, 6, and 8 millimeter stone strands. So you see, all of this stuff that's behind us, all these great things. As always, we also have a recipe on this project, so if you're like, you know what, I want to kind of make my own thing,
Mhm.
then you can kind of follow that recipe and create your own kind of look. But if you use Float 25, it'll knock 25% off the pearls and
That's
the
such a
round
good deal.
stones. Yeah, it
It's
is.
a stock up kind of
It
deal.
is, and it's good until tonight, 7/25/18 at midnight Pacific time. If you're watching this later on another day on the replay, I'm sorry that discount doesn't apply, but you can always go to our website, beadshop.com, and sign up for our newsletter, because that's how you stay in touch for all of our stuff.
Yep.
Now, our giveaway today, we are doing a drawing, and it's a silk sampler. So, I'm going to have you hold this one too. We thought it would be fun that one lucky winner who places their order between right now, it's about 5 after 12 Pacific time, for the next hour today, July 25th, if you place an order of any size and write in the shipping notes silk sampler, I have pulled a variety of sizes, one in every color that we carry. So this exact sampler that I used on the broadcast, I'm putting like little fans, I'm putting in an organza bag and sending,
your way.
and it's coming your way. Okay? So write silk sampler in your shipping notes. And again, I'm sorry if you're watching this after either 1:05 p.m. on today or a different day. I'm sorry you won't qualify. But again,
Come visit. Come watch us
yeah,
when we're on.
come watch us when we're on, or sign up for our newsletter, because we do a lot of newsletter exclusive deals and giveaways as well. So if you just go right over to beadshop.com, all of your info stays private for us. We don't give it away or sell it or anything like that. So you can be in the running for some other things that we might have. Okay, so I think, you guys, that is it. I think we've answered almost all of the
Is that a wrap?
questions. I think that's a wrap. Do you want to
Oh.
why don't you get the crazy boy out, Barandowin?
Naughty pants.
Not Mr. Naughty Pants. On Friday, for Free Tip Friday, again, as usual, what a surprise. I have no idea what I'm going to do. But you can join me for Free Tip Friday for a fun tip. And don't forget, next Tuesday, to keep an eye out. It's going to be at actually 8 a.m. Pacific time. It's going to be a little bit earlier, but we'll have that in the newsletter for my special broadcast for my Bead Fest sneak peek that's going to be happening.
Live from the studio.
Live from my studio. And here comes
Naughty
a
Pants.
young man.
Hi.
I know we've had a few Alfred requests.
Oh, he's purring
There he
really
is.
loud.
A super purr.
Yeah.
There's the man.
Can you say hi?
Yes,
to
say
everybody?
hi to everybody.
There you go.
We know that a lot of you are Alfred fans, so we're happy to report Alfred had his first veterinary appointment. Everything went swimmingly, and he is scheduled for his snippity snip in just a few weeks. So,
And it'll be all
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And
you're
he's just
sneaky
discovered how to drink out of the sink. My bathroom will never be the same. Well, thanks so much, as always, you guys,
Hi.
for joining us.
No.
I'll see you Friday for Free Tip Friday. And next week, we have a new product launch and a new project that Emily and I have been working on.
Yeah,
so
it's
we
cool.
cannot wait to share it with you.
Good
All
fun.
right, Naughty Pants. Look at what a good boy you are. All right. Say goodbye to everyone, Alfie. There, good boy. All right.
Boy,
We'll see you
yeah.
guys soon. Thanks for joining
Bye,
us.
guys. Thanks
Bye-bye.
so much.
What a good boy. What a good boy.
Eat you up.